Scenes from stock footage about Gerson I had already compiled.
If you think of basically what's in Gerson therapy, you really wouldn't expect it to cure cancer. So no, I don't think there's any evidence that anybody's ever been cured by Gerson therapy.
It's not right from any aspect at all.
Well, has the Gerson therapy ever cured a cancer patient?
Well, of course not. They won't even release their records.
There's absolutely no scientific evidence that he's cured anyone. I've never interviewed any Gerson patients. It really is pointless.
But I had interviewed patients, and more than a couple. These patients had recovered from every type of cancer, and for many of them it was terminal. Orthodox medicine had given up on them and sent them all home to die. Some of them published books about their recoveries. I traveled all over the world, from Holland to Japan, and everywhere it was the same result: recovery. And even heart arteries can be restored. When Prince Charles spoke publicly in favor of the Gerson therapy after observing its effectiveness, he was skewered by the medical community. Nevertheless, I had observed his unwavering sentiments in a letter that was sent to the Gerson Institute. Charlotte Gerson routinely gives lectures about her father's famous therapy all over the world.
Dr. Gerson said 2 basic things are toxicity and deficiency.
Garrett was on the right track with his homeschool schedule, and what he had just seen drew him in even deeper. Now the world began to appear slightly more complicated to him. As he studied various magazine articles about the increasing incidence of cancer, he searched curiously and exhaustively for any mention of Dr. Gerson's therapy within mainstream media sources. Instead, what he discovered within the pages of any given article about cancer or chronic disease was a different approach to the crises, one that made him suspicious. Garrett wanted to learn more, and to his delight, the Gerson family sent him some long-forgotten film reels. Dr. Gerson's image with his family came to life. There was the discovery of footage of Charlotte Gerson in her 20s that captured his imagination within the historical reference of the where, why, and how this family eventually ended up in the United States from Germany. As a young doctor in Germany, Max Gerson's inspiration was Hungarian medical researcher Dr. Ignaz Semmelweis, who discovered that if physicians simply washed their hands between delivering babies, women would no longer die of infections. He was severely ridiculed for the suggestion. Ridicule followed Gerson as well after he discovered a cure for his migraine headaches and then tuberculosis by changing the diet. A clinical trial was undertaken with 450 incurable skin tuberculosis patients. None of them recovered at first, and Gerson was devastated. But then it was discovered that a nurse was sneaking pastries, beer, and sausages to the patients. The Gerson diet was then strictly followed, leading to the recovery of 446 of the 450 patients. Then, he discovered it cured cancer. In World War II, Gerson was able to flee Nazi persecution with his family to the United States. He continued to not only cure cancer, but other chronic diseases too. And when his close friend Dr. Albert Schweitzer suffered from diabetes, he cured Dr. Schweitzer as well, leading Schweitzer to assess and declare that Gerson was, quote, the most eminent genius in medical history. In July of 1946, Senator Claude Pepper held Senate subcommittee hearings over Dr. Gerson's cancer therapy. The astounding testimony was quickly reported by ABC News commentator Raymond Graham Swing over ABC Radio. The public's reaction was swift and favorable, but the broadcast resulted in the firing of Raymond Graham Swing 2 weeks later due to severe pressure by the pharmaceutical and American medical establishment.
I was investigated 5 times. What do you mean by being investigated, sir? From the EME. They investigated you? Yes, 5 times. Every time they come, I show them Here's a patient you sent home to die, cured. Other patient you sent home to die, cured. Next patient you sent home to die, cured.
And cure he did, including people with muscular dystrophy like this young girl. Dr. Gerson's public lectures about his therapy were unpopular amongst his peers. For example, Gerson had spoken out against tobacco since 1920.
Time out for many men of medicine usually means just long enough to enjoy a cigarette. And because they know what a pleasure it is to smoke a mild, good-tasting cigarette, they're particular about the brand they choose. In a repeated national survey, doctors in all branches of medicine, doctors in all parts of the country were asked, "What cigarette do you smoke, doctor?" Once again, the brand named most was Camel. Yes, according to this repeated nationwide survey, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. Why not change to Camels for the next 30 days and see what a difference it makes in your smoking enjoyment? See how Camels agree with your throat. See how mild and good tasting a cigarette can be.
And as more layers of the therapy were uncovered and understood, it was becoming clear to Garrett why there was such opposition to Gerson's therapy of caring for health.
The tobacco industry was the main source of advertising for the American Medical Association at that time.
Philip Morris was the Journal of American Medical Association's major source of advertising revenue. The editor of that journal, Dr. Morris Fishbein, attacked Dr. Max Gerson for, quote, treating cancer patients with diet and warning them against cigarettes. Fishbein originally aspired to become a professional clown, yet he never practiced a day of medicine or treated a single patient in his entire career.
Today it's no different. Chemical and pharmaceutical companies now run the American Medical Association and the FDA. The thing that bugs me is that people think the FDA is protecting them. It isn't. What the FDA is doing and what the public thinks it's doing are as different as night and day. A quote from Herbert Lay, the former commissioner of the FDA.
The boy remembered the superior effectiveness in a remedy his father had used on his foot. Costly and toxic pharmaceutical treatments had not worked, but by merely dicing a few cloves of garlic mixed with raw honey, his foot problem disappeared. Raw honey also disinfected and greatly sped up cuts and abrasions. Another healthy, inexpensive item used, that is non-toxic, was hydrogen peroxide. It was used as a cleanser in the home and was even found useful cosmetically in hair highlighting. Garrett found putting 3% hydrogen peroxide in the ears for a time would even prevent the common cold. There are volumes written about natural cures and treatments. Knowledge is power. Garrett gave his orphaned moose calf named Franny her last bottle of goat's milk. And so Garrett's homeschool lesson went to a new level. It was time for him to take his homework on the road and put it all to the ultimate test. The entire foundation for Garrett's study and scientific analysis of Gerson's treatment commenced around breakfast with Charlotte Gerson in San Diego. Charlotte Gerson's son, Howard Strauss, and a distinguished guest who had just arrived from Slovenia also would join us. It was here that Garrett would compare his notes about Dr. Gerson's claims with unrelated outside sources to truly see if they match up.
Dental amalgam, and it's, by the way, dentists like to call it alloy because it makes it sound so much more stable. But dental amalgam is the biggest and the worst exposure to mercury that most Americans have in their lives.
If that is true, then millions of people have needlessly suffered a plethora of ills for well over a century and didn't realize the true cause was all in their heads. I was about to film a demonstration that proved this beyond a shadow of a doubt. Dr. Roger Eichmann and Dr. David Kennedy set up a phosphorescent screen and light that would be sensitive to mercury vapor coming off the tooth if it was present after even the slightest stimulation. We had teeth with amalgam fillings that would be placed in water of just room temperature to represent saliva in the mouth. I did not truly believe mercury vapor would come off the tooth, or if it did, that the film camera would register it. I also had a video camera on hand to record this event. To my shock and horror, and as you can see, the 35mm motion picture camera did register the mercury vapor coming off the tooth. This is the first time in history this has ever been captured on a film camera. To make certain that what you are seeing is mercury, we had on hand a special instrument called a Jerome mercury sniffer to measure the levels.
191.
190, show that to me, please. 191, is that high?
They'll close the factory and gets over 100 and evacuate.
Oh boy, my gosh. Okay.
Now, you think about
Turn
it,
off the light.
This is room temperature, 1, 2, at least 50 years old. It's been degassing for years, and many people have a whole mouthful of them.
Yeah.
Now just think what happens if you have half a dozen people in a elevator, all degassing like this, and it's degassing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And your OSHA standards are based on a 40-hour week.
Dr. Eichmann dipped his fingers in water to prove that this is not condensed water vapor.
Put my fingers in it. And if you notice, my wet fingers have no gas coming off of it. It's not water vapor.
I don't see anything, yeah.
That you're seeing.
Next, Dr. Kennedy set up on the counter an amalgam mixer, which dentists use in their office to mix the amalgam capsules. And after mixing, they're broken open to prepare to be placed inside a patient's mouth as the amalgam filling. The amalgam capsules are then lined up one by one on a shaker where they are shaken for a time. With an unsuspecting patient nearby, the capsules are then broken open just as any dentist or dental assistant will do. Will mercury vapor be released? Remember, this is common procedure and goes on each and every day all over the world in dental offices next to innocent patients. The images speak for themselves. For the American Dental Association to continue to insist that amalgams are safe would seem absurd.
Turn on the light, can we see what we got?
252.
Yikes. Should we exit this? Are we getting poisoned in here?
Yes, it's raised the room up.
Yeah.
It's no worse than working in a dental office.
The problem is now, if you go into a dental office to remove a silver filling, and they cavalierly start putting a drill on, this whole screen would turn black. You hit it with a high-speed drill, and you're going to put mercury everywhere. And those very small cuttings of amalgam will go all over. You've got to use a rubber dam. You've got to use a high-speed evacuator to get all that out. And you never turn off your evacuator until the last piece is out of the mouth, because as soon as you scratch on it, it's just like me scratching a knife on here.
I think it's a crime what they're doing to their dental staff. Is that the female is much more sensitive reproductive-wise to mercury, and as a result, that causes not only infertility, but it causes birth defects. Of course, you get the usual denials, but when you look at the scientific literature, it is full of studies showing that exposure to mercury, either from your teeth or from working in a dental office, will, you saw the demonstration. There's huge amounts of mercury in those offices. They don't monitor that. They don't warn the employees. They don't give them adequate mask and protection. And as a result, there's a tremendous amount of infertility in dental assistants. There's a documentary on it. It's about the Norwegian dental nurses and about their lives being devastated by their job when they were young girls. So I think it's a crime what they're doing to these young girls.
I've had patients come in from other dentists saying,